Hey, Bill DeWeese here again with Long Strange Journey in Palm Harbor, Florida. And this is part 2 of the video for Hitchhiker's Guide to Trolling Motor Battery. And of course, the best way to make a long video is to start out by declaring that you're going to make a quick video. And that's what happened with the video, and I decided I was going to go back and look and see what I should cut out, but I didn't see anything that wasn't relevant or important or was redundant. So what I decided to do is break this up into the second part, which is focusing on the electrical, which is kind of good because it could be looked at separately. But the first part that you saw before, if you watched it, is on dealing with corrosion and maintaining and grooming your connections and looking for problems. Now we're going to focus on the electrical part, which can be done first actually if you're looking for problems, but independent of that, as I mentioned, I've got a couple of quirks here. I don't connect my charger permanently. I go through a quick disconnect with a pigtail, and I've got those connected for now. As mentioned earlier, I believe, I took those and I cleaned them as I've scrubbed everything in the first video. I also cleaned those with the contact cleaner to ensure there's no debris, dirt, water, anything in there. And then I've coated those with dielectric grease because they're a quick connect type connection. And all of our connections here are cleaned. They are groomed to be in good shape, coated with a corrosion resistance when we're done. So now we're going to turn our meter on, and just real quickly, you can use, this is a digital voltmeter. You don't need to have a $200 voltmeter to do this. You can do this with even some of the free or discounted ones that they have on special at Harbor Freight. They're not the most accurate, they're not the best, but they will work. And again, you're interested here, in addition to voltages, we're also interested in identifying voltage drops. So they're good for that as well. And they're good to keep with you in your car and on your boat for various tasks. But what we want to look for here is two things. Well, a few different things, but we're going to look for the battery voltage for the individual battery. So I'm checking my starboard battery. I'm checking and I see 13.62 volts, right? And so that's a good healthy voltage from that. These batteries are not fully charged. When I started this process, I had these batteries on the charger overnight, but that was before I had decided that I definitely want to take a look at them for problematic corrosion or any connection issues or whatever. So they have been charged, but the charger was actually in charging mode, not maintaining mode, so they were still being charged. So 13.62 on that starboard battery, and the port battery is 13.58. So they're close, relatively close in voltage. And this is my ladder, right? It's 24 volt system. So if I go to my negative bottom of the ladder and my positive top of the ladder, I get the summation of those, 27.19 volts, right? And what we're now going to do as our second test, which is a very important test for this and for any electronics on your boat, is we're going to go out here to the end. Now you can't see this, it's off camera, but out here I've got a battery tender quick disconnect. This battery tender quick disconnect I completely tore out, and I today and took it apart. I soaked it for about 30 minutes in vinegar, and then I cleaned it all out, blew out all of the liquids with the contact cleaner, and then I have built it back up and put dielectric grease on the quick disconnects. So we're seeing 20, too much dielectric grease. We're seeing 27.16 volts at the connector. Now from the connector to the trolling motor is a very short pigtail. I maintain that as well, but I'm seeing 27.16 at the connector, and across the ladder I'm seeing 27.15. So there's a tenth of a volt drop between the connections. So there's a minor voltage drop between this. If you do not want to see a large voltage drop between these, because that implies that you have a resistance creeping into your line. All of this is standard copper connections. 27.15, so the batteries, 27.14 at the thing and 27.1415 at the battery. So we're not really seeing a voltage drop across our batteries in this case. No, they're not. So the batteries are in good shape. The wiring is in good shape. A couple more things we want to talk about here is, so now again, as I mentioned, I've got my charging system connected on the output side. I'm now going to actually connect my AC unit to the AC to the unit, and I'll bring this over here so we can access it. So I'm now connecting it. And you'll see it'll boot up, give you power, booting up. It's going to be pending charging. We're going to watch the system check okay. Very shortly, the system check should return a green indication. And sometimes that can take a minute or two. Your battery charger may be different. Pro Mariner, I've been using these for a while. I have one in the back. I have this one up front. Again, I don't install this. I quick disconnect and unconnect it because I don't want it up here permanently getting beat up. So my battery type, so there's a lot of good information here that's actually important to understand because it's very helpful to see. Like for example, we can see I can either wait for the system check, but I can go ahead and take a connection here and knock it loose. So you can see I'm already seeing a fluctuation in the indicator number 1 that blinked there. So basically I'm pulling the negative terminal off for the charging side. And when that comes off, you see that illuminates. And it says here that, you know, this is your battery trouble status. See your manual. You can download the manual for your particular unit, whether it's something, if they have the same capabilities as the Pro Sport. If illuminate, check for reverse polarity, poor connections, battery too low to charge. So don't overlook these handy features of these smarter systems. They can be helpful. When I had my original problem that I mentioned where I had a bad day on the water and had to come home early, when I hooked it up, I did see the battery trouble indicator on the prior Pro Mariner Pro Sport was illuminated red. And when I cleaned all my contacts, it remained illuminated red, and it wasn't reverse polarity, and the battery was chargeable because I alternated bank 1 and bank 2, and it was fine. So the problem followed the leads. When I inspected further, the lead had been damaged up in here with either probably hit by the anchor or hit with the prop, the spare prop or something, and it was damaged. And so it's 6 years old. I just replaced the whole unit. That's this new unit here. And again, that's why I choose to not permanently connect it, because this is a pretty dangerous place to put electronics. But the bottom line is, so my system check came in okay. I'm actively charging. So that means we can now get our second reading, right? So while we are, and you can do this for any battery in your car, you can do this for the battery. Like I have 2 batteries in the back, two starting batteries, 2,000 amp batteries, CCA batteries back there for the engine, and an A1 to all switch for battery selection. And if you have your battery switch selected to 1, in my case, it's my port battery, and I can read that, and it says 13 volts or 12.5 volts. When I start my engine, I can go read the battery, and now I read 13.8 to 14.1 or 2, right? So, because now I know my stator, my Suzuki engine is charging the battery. So you're verifying for charging voltage. So we had a voltage here, and we're now in charging mode. So now we're 14.28. So we're actively charging the battery. So yeah, I got kind of the idiot lights on here, and they have been very helpful over the years to be able to say, oh, look, this thing is plugged in and lit up and it's trying to charge, but one or more of the batteries is having an issue. So these lights can be very helpful. Don't overlook them, because they can give you indications as to what is going on. But you can also, and always do, go old school and just take your meter and put it back in there and compare your charge voltage 14.48 to what we had before, which was 13.5, right? So we can see that these batteries are not just, because if your batteries are dead, it could be the battery. It could also be that the charger isn't doing its job charging them, right? So so we want to check the voltage at each individual battery, make sure those two batteries are healthy. There's not a dead short on one of the cells. Like I said, in my case, I will take, in addition to what you've seen here today, I don't show it in the videos, but you can Google it. I pop the lid on these. I will do a hygrometer check of each cell. I will replace any low distilled water. Not going to show that, but that's something that I do. And any one of those cells can go bad, and suddenly you have a battery reading 11 point something volts, right? So a cell can short, a cell can go bad. But you can do all this with your meter, right? Because your meter is showing you the voltage of your battery, and then right now it's showing the voltage of your battery when it's being charged, right? So we now have 28.83 volts, right? So your meter will let you see what's going on with your batteries at rest, during charge. The meter will let you follow your cabling, right? So you can say, okay, I'm going to go from my positive to my, or go to my negative here. I'm going to go from my positive. I got 28.8. Now I'm going to hop on the other side of my circuit breaker. And I've got, let me get a good bite on this here. 28.8, right? So that's the next thing. Now all I got is nothing more than an 8-gauge wire running all the way up here to the battery tender cable. And so I can put it across here, and I moved the thing. But I should have 28.8. There I go. So I know I have zero voltage drop, or zero concerning voltage drop. There's probably a 1/10 of a volt loss just due to the copper wiring, potentially, but within reason. You don't want to see large voltage drop. That's what will prevent your battery from charging. That will be also what prevents your trolling motor from getting an optimal voltage. That's something that will, in the back of your boat, that could kill depending upon your configuration, what batteries deliver what. Some people will have a single charging battery, and then they'll have a set of these, or a single starting battery and a set of these, and they'll have an ACR to do the charging, and it really depends on what your configuration is. So what you've got now with that is you've got a configuration of batteries, and they're driving different electronics. This is a very simple closed system, but if you're driving bait well pumps and bilge pumps and other pumps, and you have a voltage drop, you're not going to deliver the proper voltage in range to those devices. A pump that might last you 2 years is now going to last you 8 months, maybe even less. But you want to check that for that voltage drop. That's a sign of corrosion. That's a sign of poor crimpage. That's a sign of a damaged wire. And your meter, you can do all of that with a nice meter. You can do all that even with a cheap meter. So get a meter. And for the electrical side of this whole discussion, so we've done everything. We've groomed the whole thing, cleaned it all up. Let's say you got a nasty day where you can't be out on the water, or just it's time to do a maintenance day. It's a great way to spend a half a day and go through all of your connections and go through all of your electrical. And again, in my case, I can take my boat as is configured. This is a bit over-engineered for being able to do multi-day camping trips. And we've had 2 times this year in the Everglades area where one of those we went for a long duration, 4 days total, probably 3 days of fishing and moving without needing a charge. So I know what to expect from this under happy circumstances. So on Sunday, we had a very busy day, very windy day, very long day, very arduous day. We put the trolling motor through its paces, and even though it didn't fully discharge, the red light came on, and I had charged it before we left. So that's my first sign. I didn't have a bad day on the water, but that tells me to stop and take a look at things. I found a loose crimp that is probably bounced loose. I found definite signs of early corrosion in almost every one of my battery terminal connections, and pretty good corrosion in that red one that was back here. That in the prior video, if you see where I cleaned it, that one was fairly corroded. So I didn't do all the voltage drops beforehand to verify that would have delivered less voltage, but I'm guaranteeing you that it was suboptimal. So definitely going through this process will head off a bad day on the water, And again, for me, this interval is 3 months minimum, and obviously if I see something, I'll jump on it right away like I did from this weekend. So I hope this video helps, both the first video on the cleanup and the grooming of your wiring and checking, and then secondly this one on how to use your meter and what to look for to diagnose the battery